Part 1. They say the lights outside Black Hollow Ranch only appear when someone is about to disappear. I laughed the first time I heard that story, right until I saw the lights myself. Before we begin tonight's story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. And if you enjoy true-style horror stories set deep in forgotten places across America, stay until the end because this one gets darker every mile. My name's Carter Hale, and 2 years ago I took a job that nearly got me killed in the middle of West Texas. Back then, I was desperate for money. I had spent almost 6 months drifting between cheap motels, working temporary jobs from Amarillo to Midland. Most nights I slept in my truck with a loaded revolver under the seat because the roads out there were full of strange people. Oil workers, drifters, drug runners, men who stared too long at gas stations. One afternoon I stopped at a tiny diner outside a dying town called Ash Creek. The place had 4 tables, yellow lights, and a waitress that looked exhausted before noon. While I ate cold meatloaf, I noticed a paper pinned to a corkboard near the register. Ranch hand needed. Night security. Black Hollow Ranch. Good pay, cash weekly. There was a phone number written underneath. The waitress caught me staring at it. "You don't want to call that number?" she said quietly. I laughed. "What? Place haunted or something?" She didn't smile. "People out there keep leaving." That answer stuck with me longer than it should have. Still, money was money. I called the number that same evening. An older man answered immediately, like he'd been waiting beside the phone. "You looking for work?" he asked. His voice sounded dry, scratchy. "Depends on the pay. $5,000 for 1 month." I nearly dropped the phone. "What's the catch?" "You stay on the property after dark," he said. "And you follow every rule exactly as I tell you." There was something strange about the way he said exactly. But $5,000 was more money than I'd seen in months. So the next morning I drove west. The highway slowly turned into empty desert. Cell service vanished after an hour. Then the paved road disappeared too. Dust slammed against my truck while rusted fences stretched for miles across dead land. By sunset I finally saw the ranch. Black Hollow Ranch sat alone between rocky hills like it had been abandoned decades ago. The main house was massive but falling apart. Boards covered some windows. Windmills creaked in the distance. I remember feeling like the whole property was watching me. An old man stood near the front porch waiting. Tall, thin, gray beard. His eyes looked almost colorless. "You Carter?" he asked. "Yeah. I'm Everett Crow." He didn't shake my hand. Instead, he handed me a flashlight and pointed toward a smaller building behind the house. "You'll sleep there." I noticed shotgun shells scattered across the porch. "Coyotes?" I asked. Everett stared toward the hills. "Something like that." That should have been my sign to leave. But I didn't. Inside the small cabin, there was barely enough room for a bed, sink, and wood stove. A radio sat on the table beside a handwritten list. Rules for night security. I remember laughing at first. The list looked insane. Never leave the porch after midnight. That if you hear knocking from the fields, do not investigate. Keep all lights off between 2:15 and 2:30 a.m. If someone calls your name outside, stay inside no matter who it sounds like. If the dogs begin screaming, lock every door immediately. Never look toward the hills after 3 a.m. At the bottom was one final sentence written darker than the rest. "If you see the lights, pray they pass you by." I stared at the page for almost a full minute. Then Everett suddenly appeared outside my cabin window. I nearly jumped out of my skin. "You read them?" he asked. "Yeah," I said nervously. "What exactly is this place?" He ignored the question. "Rules keep people alive." Then he walked away into the darkness. That first night felt wrong from the start. The ranch had no internet, barely any power, just silence and wind. At around 11 p.m., I sat on the porch cleaning my revolver while coyotes howled somewhere far away. Then I heard another sound. Metal scraping. Slow. Rhythmic. I grabbed the flashlight and scanned the fields. Nothing. But the sound kept coming. Scrappy. Scrappy. Like someone dragging something heavy across dirt. I remembered rule number 2 and stayed where I was. A few minutes later the sound stopped completely. That should have made me feel better. Instead, the silence became worse. Because now I could hear breathing. Close. Too close. I froze. The breathing came from underneath the porch. Slow and wet. I stood carefully and backed toward the cabin door. Then whatever was beneath me moved. The wooden boards trembled under my boots. I ran inside and locked the door immediately. The breathing stopped. For almost 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then came the knocking. 3 slow knocks. Not at the door. At the window. I turned toward it carefully. There was nobody there. Another knock hit the glass. This time from the opposite side of the cabin. My stomach dropped. Something was circling the cabin. I grabbed the revolver. "Who's there?" I shouted. No answer. Then I heard my own voice whisper outside. "Carter?" Every hair on my body stood up. It sounded exactly like me. "Carter, open the door." The voice moved slowly around the cabin walls. I backed away, shaking. The thing outside kept talking in my voice for nearly 5 minutes. Then suddenly, the dogs began screaming. Not barking, screaming. I'd never heard animals make sounds like that before. I remembered rule number 5 instantly and locked the second door near the stove. Outside, chaos exploded across the ranch. Dogs crying, chains rattling, something running through the dirt at impossible speed. Then came gunshots from the main house. Everett was firing at something outside. Boom, boom, boom. A horrible shriek echoed across the hills right after the third shot. And then I saw them. Lights. Dozens of pale white lights floating near the hills beyond the ranch. They moved strangely. Not like flashlights. More like people carrying lanterns while gliding above the ground. I remembered the final warning. If you see the lights, pray they pass you by. The lights slowly stopped moving. Every single one turned toward my cabin. Then the whispering started again. Except this time, there were dozens of voices saying my name. End of part 1. Part 2. The voices outside my cabin kept repeating my name. Not yelling, whispering. Dozens of them. Some sounded old. Some sounded young. Some sounded almost human. But none of them sounded right. "Carter? Come outside. We found you." I pressed myself against the wall near the stove, gripping the revolver so tightly my hands started cramping. Outside, the floating lights remained perfectly still near the hills. Watching. I could feel it. Then the radio on the table suddenly crackled to life. Static exploded through the cabin. A second later, Everett's voice came through. "Don't answer them," he hissed. Gunshots echoed in the distance behind him. Boom. Something screamed again. The sound didn't even resemble an animal this time. It sounded almost metallic, like steel twisting underwater. "What the hell is happening?" I shouted into the radio. Everett ignored the question. "Whatever you hear tonight, don't open that door. Not for anyone." Then the transmission cut out. The lights outside slowly began moving again. Not toward the cabin. Around it, circling. I peeked through the cracks in the wooden boards covering the window. That was my first mistake. At first, I thought the lights were lanterns. They weren't. They floated several feet above the ground with no visible source. And beneath them, shapes. Tall figures moving through the dark. Too thin to be normal people. Their arms looked unnaturally long. The way they walked made my stomach turn because their legs bent wrong, jerking sharply with every step. One of them suddenly stopped moving. Its head snapped toward my window. Even from that distance, I knew it saw me. The light above its head flickered violently. Then every voice outside stopped at once. Complete silence. My heartbeat felt louder than the wind. And then, bang. Something slammed against the cabin wall hard enough to shake the entire room. Another hit came from the roof. Heavy footsteps scrambled across the top of the cabin. I aimed the revolver upward while dust rained from the ceiling beams. Whatever was up there began crawling slowly from one side to the other. Scrappy. Its nails dragged across the wood. Then came a new voice. A woman, crying outside my door. "Please?" Her voice trembled with fear. "They took my husband." I froze. "Please let me inside." Part of me wanted to help her. But something felt horribly wrong. The crying sounded forced somehow. Like someone trying to imitate fear without understanding it completely. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "You left me here before, Carter?" I had never heard that voice in my life. But whatever was outside knew my name. The crying suddenly stopped. Then the woman's voice twisted into something deeper. Angrier. "You should have opened the door." The thing outside slammed into the cabin so hard the lantern hanging near the stove crashed onto the floor. I stumbled backward. Another impact hit the wall. Then another. The entire cabin groaned like it might collapse. Outside, dogs barked frantically before one of them let out a horrific choking scream. Then silence. A few seconds later, something wet hit the cabin window. I looked carefully. Blood. Fresh blood slowly slid down the glass. I heard footsteps approaching the porch. Slow. Heavy. Unlike the others, these footsteps sounded human. A flashlight beam appeared through the cracks in the boards. Then Everett's voice spoke outside. "Carter, open the door." I rushed toward it immediately. But just before I unlocked it, I remembered the rules. If someone calls your name outside, stay inside no matter who it sounds like. I stopped breathing. Everett, I asked carefully. Open the damn door, he snapped. Something about his voice sounded off. Too calm. I stepped closer to the window instead. The flashlight outside flickered across the porch. That's when I noticed the shadow. The man outside wasn't holding the flashlight. The light floated beside him. And his arms hung almost to his knees. My stomach dropped. The fake Everett slowly tilted his head sideways. Then it smiled. Its jaw stretched far wider than a human mouth should. Smart boy, it whispered. The porch lights exploded. Glass shattered everywhere. The creature lunged against the door with unbelievable force. Wood cracked inward. I fired instinctively. Bang. The thing screamed. Not in pain. In rage. The floating light above its head burst like a dying bulb, showering sparks across the porch. Then the creature sprinted away into the darkness with terrifying speed. I barely had time to breathe before headlights suddenly appeared near the main house. A truck engine roared through the ranch. Everett came speeding toward the cabin in an old rust-covered pickup. This time it was really him. I knew instantly because he looked terrified. "Get in," he screamed. I grabbed my bag and ran outside. The second I left the cabin, I felt exposed. The darkness around the ranch suddenly seemed alive. Shapes moved between the fences. Tall shadows pacing us. I jumped into the truck while Everett slammed the gas pedal. The truck fishtailed through dirt as we sped toward the main house. "What are those things?" I yelled. Everett stared ahead silently for several seconds. Then he finally answered. "They used to be people." Before I could respond, something smashed onto the roof of the truck. The metal dented violently above us. Everett cursed and swerved hard. Long fingers wrapped over the windshield. Gray skin. Rotting nails. A face slowly lowered upside down into view above the glass. Its eyes reflected pure white. No pupils. No emotion. Just hunger. The creature opened its mouth impossibly wide and screamed directly at us. The sound shattered the passenger side window instantly. I covered my ears as blood trickled from one side of my head. Everett pulled a shotgun from beside his seat with one hand. Boom. The creature disappeared off the truck. But more lights began appearing across the desert. Not dozens this time. Hundreds. And every single one was moving toward the ranch. End of part 2. Part 3. The truck slammed to a stop in front of the main house just as the first of the lights reached the outer fence line. Everett grabbed my jacket before I could even move. Inside. Now. We sprinted across the porch while distant screams echoed through the desert behind us. The air smelled strange out there. Burned metal mixed with something rotten. Everett kicked the front door open and shoved me inside. The house looked worse than I expected. Dust covered everything. Old furniture sat beneath white sheets. Lanterns flickered along the walls, casting shadows that moved too much even when nobody walked. But what caught my attention immediately were the windows. Every single one had symbols painted across the glass in black ink. Circles. Lines. Strange markings that looked almost carved instead of painted. "What is this place?" I asked again. Everett locked 3 different bolts on the front door before answering. A mistake. Another impact hit the outside wall. The entire house shook. I turned toward the sound, but Everett grabbed my shoulder hard enough to hurt. "Don't look out the windows after midnight. You keep saying these rules like they matter." I snapped. "What are those things?" Everett stared at me silently. Then he walked toward the kitchen and pulled out an old photograph from a drawer. There were 6 men standing in front of the ranch house. Everett looked much younger in the picture. Beside him stood oil workers, ranch hands, and something else. A tall man dressed completely in black. Even in the faded photograph, there was something deeply wrong about him. His face looked blurry. Not damaged. Blurry. Like the camera couldn't focus on him. 30 years ago, Everett said quietly, "We drilled too deep out here." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "There's caves beneath this land. Old tunnels." He swallowed hard. "We found something buried under the ranch." Another loud bang shook the roof. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Everett continued anyway. At first people only heard voices. Then livestock disappeared. Then workers started changing. Changing how? He looked toward the dark hallway behind us. They stopped sleeping. Started wandering at night. His voice lowered. Started hearing the lights calling to them. Outside, something scratched slowly against the walls. Long nails dragging across wood. Everett loaded more shotgun shells calmly. "We tried leaving," he said. Didn't matter. They followed. The lantern near the stairs flickered suddenly. Then all the lights in the house dimmed at once. Everett's face immediately changed. "What time is it?" he asked sharply. I checked my watch. 2:14 a.m. His eyes widened. "Turn them off." "What? Now?" I rushed through the room extinguishing lanterns while Everett covered the windows with heavy cloth sheets. Within seconds the house fell into near total darkness. Only moonlight leaked through cracks in the walls. The 2:15 arrived, and the sounds outside stopped instantly. No footsteps. No scratching. Nothing. Even the wind disappeared. The silence felt unnatural, like the entire desert had stopped breathing. I whispered carefully, "Why do the lights have to stay off?" Everett didn't answer. He just stared toward the ceiling. That's when I heard it. Movement upstairs. Soft footsteps. I looked up slowly. "There's someone up there." Everett's expression went pale. "No," he whispered. "There shouldn't be." The footsteps continued, slow pacing across the second floor. Creak, creak. I raised the revolver again. Maybe one of those things got inside. Everett grabbed my arm instantly. "No matter what you hear upstairs," he said carefully, "you do not go looking." Another creak echoed above us. Then came a voice, a little girl humming softly. I froze. The humming drifted slowly across the ceiling. Everett closed his eyes like he already knew the sound. "That's impossible," he whispered. The humming stopped directly above us. Then a child's voice spoke clearly from upstairs. "Daddy?" Everett stumbled backward. For the first time since meeting him, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "Daddy, why did you leave me down there?" The floorboards upstairs groaned. Something was moving toward the staircase. Everett grabbed the shotgun with shaking hands. "You had family here?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. The staircase creaked once. Then again. Something was slowly walking down toward us in complete darkness. I could barely see the outline. Small. Thin. A child-sized figure. The thing stopped halfway down the stairs where moonlight touched it. Its skin looked pale gray. Its head tilted unnaturally far to one side. And its eyes glowed the same white color as the creatures outside. "Daddy?" it whispered again. Everett's hands trembled violently. "You aren't her," he said weakly. The creature smiled. Its mouth stretched wider and wider until the skin near its cheeks began tearing open. Then it sprinted down the stairs. Fast. Too fast. Everett fired instantly. Boom. The creature vanished into the darkness beside the staircase before the shot even hit. I heard it crawling inside the walls, moving impossibly fast around us. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound circled the room from behind the wooden panels. Then all the whispering started again. Not outside this time. Inside the house. Voices surrounded us from every direction. "Let us in. We're cold. Come downstairs." The walls began shaking softly. Everett backed toward the kitchen. "We need to get to the cellar." "What's in the cellar?" "The only place they can't enter." A massive crash exploded upstairs. Then another. The ceiling above us bent downward slightly like something enormous was crawling across it. Not human-sized. Much bigger. The whispers became frantic. Excited. Then a new sound echoed from above us. A deep breathing noise. What? Heavy. The entire house suddenly groaned under immense weight. Whatever was on the roof was enormous. End of part 3. Part 4. The thing on the roof moved again. The entire ceiling bowed inward with a loud crack. Dust exploded into the air while the old wooden beams groaned like they were seconds away from snapping. Everett grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the kitchen. "Move." Another impact slammed above us. This one sounded massive. Not like footsteps anymore. Like something heavy dragging itself slowly across the roof. The whispers inside the walls became louder. Excited. Hungry. I nearly slipped as Everett yanked open an old pantry door near the stove. Behind it was a narrow staircase descending underground. Cold air rushed upward from below. "Get down there," he ordered. I hesitated. The darkness beneath the stairs looked endless. Then something huge slammed onto the roof directly above us. The ceiling cracked open. For one horrifying second I saw part of it. A pale arm. Longer than any human arm should have been. Its skin looked stretched tightly over bone, gray and wet like something pulled from deep water. And its fingers, there were too many of them. The arm scraped slowly through the broken ceiling while the creature above sniffed the air loudly. Everett fired the shotgun upward. Boom. The arm vanished instantly. A shriek erupted across the house so loud my ears rang. Down the stairs. Everett screamed. We ran into the cellar and Everett slammed the thick metal door shut behind us. The noise upstairs immediately became violent. Furniture shattered. Walls splintered. Something enormous crawled across the floor directly above our heads. But the moment Everett locked the final bolt on the cellar door, everything stopped. Silence. The cellar was freezing cold. Concrete walls surrounded us on all sides. Old shelves lined the room, stacked with canned food, lantern fuel, and boxes covered in dust. But something else caught my attention immediately. Photographs. Hundreds of them. Pinned across the far wall. Missing people. Men. Women. Travelers. Workers. Some pictures looked decades old. Others looked recent. I stepped closer slowly. Every photo had one thing written beneath it in black marker. Heard the lights. What is this? I whispered. Everett sat heavily in a chair near the wall. For the first time he looked old. Truly old. They don't always kill people, he said quietly. I turned toward him. What do you mean? His eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Sometimes they take them below instead. A low thud echoed above us. Then scratching. Slow circles moving across the cellar ceiling. I tried ignoring it. What are they? I asked again. Everett stayed silent for several seconds. Then he pointed toward the far corner of the cellar. There was another door there. Steel. Thick. Covered in the same black symbols painted upstairs. They came from down there, he said. I stared at the door. You mean the caves? Everett nodded slowly. 30 years ago we drilled into a chamber beneath the ranch. His voice trembled slightly. We thought it was abandoned mining tunnels. Another scrape echoed above us. Long nails dragging across wood. But it wasn't empty. I stepped closer to the steel door. Cold air leaked through the cracks around it. What did you find? Everett finally looked at me. They worshipped the lights. A chill ran through me. There were markings all over the walls down there. Human bones stacked in circles. Old carvings. He swallowed hard. And deep inside the caves, we found people. Alive. His silence answered the question before he spoke. No. The lights upstairs flickered suddenly. Something moved outside the cellar door. Heavy breathing. Then came a knock. 3 slow taps. My pulse spiked instantly. Knock. 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 Everett didn't move. Neither did I. Then came a familiar voice. Carter? My blood turned cold. It was my brother, Ethan. I hadn't spoken to him in nearly a year. The voice sounded perfect. Exactly like him. Carter, I know you're in there. I stared at Everett. How do they know? They pull from your mind, Everett interrupted quietly. Memories, guilt, fear. Another knock hit the cellar door. Harder this time. Mom's been looking for you, Ethan's voice said sadly. You should have answered your phone. I couldn't breathe for a second, because that part was true. I had ignored my family for months. The voice outside laughed softly. Not Ethan anymore. Something else. You hear that? Everett whispered suddenly. I listened carefully. At first I heard nothing. Then, very faintly, a bell ringing somewhere deep below us. Not upstairs. Under the cellar. Everett stood instantly. No. The bell rang again. Ding. Ding. Slow. Ancient sounding. Everett grabbed another lantern and walked toward the steel door. What are you doing? I asked. They've never rung the bell before. The scratching above us stopped immediately. Now the entire ranch felt silent again. Even the creatures outside had gone quiet, like they were listening too. Everett unlocked one bolt on the steel door carefully. Wait. I snapped. You said they came from down there. I know what I said. The bell rang again. Closer this time. Ding. Ding. Then a voice echoed faintly from beyond the door. A human voice. Weak. Crying. Help me. Everett froze. I saw genuine panic spread across his face. No, he whispered. What? His hands began shaking violently. That's her voice. Before I could ask who he meant, the steel door suddenly shook from the other side. Bang. Both of us stumbled backward. Another impact hit. Harder. Dust rained from the ceiling. Then came the voice again. A little girl crying softly. Daddy, please let me out. Everett looked completely broken. Another violent slam hit the steel door. The metal bent inward slightly. And from the darkness beneath the cellar, something began climbing the stairs toward us. End of part 4. Part 5. Something climbed the stairs beneath the cellar door. Slowly. Each step came with a wet dragging sound that echoed through the concrete room. Scrape. Step. Scrape. Step. Everett backed away from the steel door like he already knew what was coming. His face had gone completely pale. "Who is she?" I whispered. He didn't answer immediately. The crying continued from the other side of the door. "Daddy, it's cold?" Another bang rattled the steel. Bang. The lantern light flickered violently. Everett finally spoke. "My daughter." A chill crawled down my spine. "You said these things imitate voices." "They do." "Then that's not really her." Everett looked toward the door with hollow eyes. "That's the problem," he whispered. "I don't know anymore." Another scrape echoed from below. Closer now. The thing was almost at the top of the hidden staircase. Then the voice changed. No more crying. Now the little girl sounded calm. Too calm. "You left me down there," she whispered softly. The steel door groaned inward. A dent slowly formed near the center. Something was pushing against it from the other side. Art. Everett loaded more shells into the shotgun with trembling hands. 30 years ago, he muttered, my daughter disappeared inside the caves. I stayed silent. She was 8. The room suddenly felt even colder. We searched for 3 days. Then we started hearing her voice from underground. Everett stared at the steel door. "The men wanted to seal the tunnels immediately. But you didn't." He shook his head slowly. I opened the door. Another violent impact slammed against the metal. Bang. The bolt near the top bent slightly. Everett continued speaking quietly, almost like confessing. "She came back wrong." The lantern flickered again. I swallowed hard. "What happened to her?" Everett's eyes filled with something close to guilt. "She kept hearing the lights calling her at night." His voice cracked. "Then one evening, she walked back into the caves by herself." Silence filled the cellar for several seconds. "After that," he whispered, "the ranch changed forever." A long scratching noise suddenly echoed from beneath the steel door. Not outside it. Under it. Something sharp dragged slowly across the concrete floor below us. Then came breathing. What? Hungry? I aimed the revolver toward the door instinctively. The voice behind it laughed softly now. Not like a child anymore. "You should have come find me sooner, Daddy." Everett suddenly grabbed my shoulder hard. "If that door opens," he said carefully, "do not let it touch you." The breathing beneath the door became heavier. Then came another sound. More footsteps. Not one creature. Several. Climbing upward together. My stomach dropped. The cellar lights flickered again before dying completely. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. Only Everett's lantern remained. And in that weak yellow glow, I noticed movement beneath the steel door. Fingers. Thin gray fingers slowly slid underneath the crack. There were too many joints in them. The fingers twitched unnaturally across the floor, searching. Then a second hand appeared. And another. 3 different hands clawed their way beneath the door at once. Everett fired immediately. Boom. One of the hands exploded apart against the concrete floor, spraying black liquid across the walls. The creatures behind the door shrieked in fury. The entire steel frame shook violently. "They're getting stronger," Everett muttered. A loud crash suddenly echoed upstairs. Then another. The creatures inside the ranch house were moving again. Running above us. Walls splintered. Glass shattered. And somewhere far away outside, the bell rang again. Ding, ding, ding. Faster this time. The creatures behind the steel door immediately went silent. Every single sound stopped at once. Even the scratching upstairs ended. I stared at Everett. "What does the bell mean?" He looked terrified. "It means something woke up." Before I could ask another question, the ranch house screamed. Not a person. The house itself. A deep groaning sound erupted through the walls as if the entire structure above us were twisting apart. Dust exploded from the ceiling. Then came a sound I'll never forget for the rest of my life. Footsteps. Massive footsteps. Not inside the house. Outside it. Slow impacts shook the ground above us. Tum, tum, tum. Each step felt impossibly heavy. Like something enormous was walking across the ranch. The creatures behind the steel door suddenly began whining. Fearfully. One even started crying softly. Everett's face changed instantly. "They're hiding from it." The footsteps stopped directly above the cellar. Silence. Then, a single knock hit the cellar door upstairs. Not frantic. Not violent. Calm. Controlled. Knock. 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 Everett slowly raised the shotgun. "What is it?" I whispered. His voice barely came out. "The shepherd." The lantern flame suddenly bent sideways like air was being sucked from the room. Then the voice came. Ancient sounding. Not loud. but it vibrated through my chest. Open. The walls of the cellar began cracking. Concrete dust rained around us. The steel door behind us bulged outward again as the creatures trapped below started screaming in panic. And then, the upstairs cellar door handle slowly began turning by itself. End of Part 5. Part 6. The cellar door handle kept turning slowly. Metal creaked against metal. Everett raised the shotgun with both shaking hands while backing toward the far wall. "Don't look directly at it," he whispered. "What?" "The shepherd." His voice cracked. "If you see its face too long, it stays with you." The handle stopped moving. For 1 second, everything became silent again. Then the upstairs cellar door burst inward. The impact echoed like a gunshot through the cellar staircase above us. Cold air flooded downward immediately. Not normal cold. This felt wrong. Dead. The lantern flame shrank violently as heavy footsteps descended the stairs. Tum, tum, tum. Dust drifted from the ceiling with every step. Everett stared upward in terror. I wanted to look too, but something deep inside me screamed not to. The thing descending the stairs sounded enormous. Too large for the narrow staircase. Its body scraped against the walls as it moved downward slowly. Stone cracked. Wood splintered. And then, the whispers started again. Not around us. Inside my head. "Look at him. He came for you. You were chosen." I covered my ears, but the voices only became louder. Everett suddenly shouted, "Light?" I snapped out of it and grabbed another lantern from the shelf. The moment I lit it, the footsteps stopped. Completely. The thing on the stairs froze. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then I noticed something horrifying. A shadow stretched across the staircase wall. Too tall. Its head nearly touched the ceiling above the stairs. And the shape of it kept changing slightly, like smoke trying to imitate a human body. The whispers in my head became softer now. Almost comforting. "You're tired, Carter? Come closer. We can show you the truth." My chest tightened. For one terrible second, I actually wanted to walk toward it. Everett fired the shotgun upward suddenly. Boom. The blast shattered part of the staircase railing. The shadow instantly jerked backward unnaturally fast. Then came a scream unlike anything I'd ever heard before. Not animal. Not human. It sounded like hundreds of voices crying out together. The lanterns exploded across the cellar. Glass sprayed everywhere. Darkness swallowed the room again. Then chaos erupted. The shepherd moved. Fast. Far too fast for something that large. I heard Everett slam against the wall beside me as the creature rushed through the cellar. Concrete cracked. Shelves collapsed. Something massive brushed past me in the dark, cold enough to burn my skin. I fired blindly. Bang. The muzzle flash lit the cellar for less than a second. But that second was enough. I saw part of it. Long black robes hanging over an impossibly thin body. Arms that bent backward at the elbows. And beneath the hood, nothing. Not darkness. Not a face. Just glowing white light pouring from inside the hood like a doorway. The flash disappeared. Then Everett screamed. I turned toward the sound instantly. The shepherd had him pinned against the wall. One enormous hand wrapped around Everett's throat. Its fingers looked almost skeletal beneath gray skin stretched too tightly across bone. And the hood slowly turned toward me. I immediately looked away. Even without seeing its face directly, my vision blurred. The whispers exploded inside my skull. You abandoned them? You run from everyone? You belong below. Memories flooded my head. My brother calling me. My mother crying during our last argument. All the people I walked away from. The voices twisted every memory into guilt. Pain. Failure. I nearly dropped the revolver. Then Everett shouted something desperately. The symbols. I forced myself to focus. The black symbols painted upstairs. The ones on the steel door. I spotted a small chalk symbol painted near the cellar wall beside me. A circle with lines crossing through it. The shepherd suddenly froze. Its hood tilted slightly. Then it slowly backed away from the symbol. Like it feared it. Everett collapsed to the floor coughing violently. Draw them, he gasped. On the walls? I grabbed fallen chalk from a broken shelf and started drawing the symbols desperately across the concrete walls around us. The whispers immediately became furious. The temperature in the cellar dropped even lower. Frost formed along the floor. The shepherd stood motionless near the stairs now, watching us. Waiting. And behind it, I saw movement. Dozens of glowing white eyes appearing in the darkness upstairs. The other creatures had gathered behind it silently. Watching. Like animals waiting for permission to feed. Everett crawled toward me weakly. "There's only one way to stop this," he whispered. "What?" He looked toward the steel door beneath the cellar. "We seal the caves forever." A massive bang suddenly hit the steel door again. This time the metal split open slightly down the middle. Black liquid leaked through the crack. And from the darkness below, hands began reaching through. Dozens of them. The creatures trapped beneath the ranch were forcing their way out. The shepherd slowly turned toward the broken steel door. Then for the first time, it sounded afraid. The hood snapped upward sharply. The whispers stopped. And deep beneath the ranch, something much larger growled back. End of Part 6. Part 7. The growl beneath the ranch shook the entire cellar. Concrete cracked beneath my boots. Dust exploded from the ceiling while the steel door bulged outward another inch. The creatures behind it immediately began screaming. Not angry this time. Terrified. Even the shepherd stepped backward toward the staircase. Its glowing hood turned slowly toward the darkness below the cellar as if something down there had suddenly become far more dangerous than us. Another growl echoed upward. Deeper this time. Ancient. It sounded impossibly large. Like something buried underground for centuries had finally opened its eyes. Everett grabbed my arm hard. "We don't have much time now." "What?" I asked that thing. I shouted. His face looked hollow. "The reason the caves were sealed." The split in the steel door widened suddenly with a loud metallic "eh." Black liquid poured across the floor. Then came movement. Something massive shifted below us. Not climbing. Rising. The shepherd suddenly let out a strange clicking noise toward the creatures upstairs. The white-eyed figures immediately scattered backward into the darkness like frightened animals. "It's leaving?" I asked. "No," Everett whispered. "It's hiding." Another violent impact hit the steel door. The entire frame bent outward. I aimed the revolver instinctively even though I knew bullets probably wouldn't matter anymore. Everett limped toward an old storage cabinet near the cellar wall and ripped it open. Inside were dynamite sticks. Old but still intact. My eyes widened. "You were planning to blow the caves?" "I should have done it 30 years ago." The growl below us became louder. Closer. The steel door suddenly burst open halfway. A freezing blast of air exploded through the cellar. The lantern beside me died instantly. And then I saw it. One enormous eye opened in the darkness beneath the ranch. Not glowing white like the others. Yellow. Massive. Blinking slowly somewhere deep below the broken doorway. My entire body locked up. The eye alone looked bigger than a truck tire. Something impossible was down there. Something breathing heavily in the dark. The shepherd backed farther toward the stairs. For the first time since seeing it, it looked small. The whispers returned inside my head again. "Panic this time. Seal the door. Don't let it rise. It will consume everything." Everett shoved the dynamite into my hands. "There's an old support tunnel beneath the caves," he said quickly. "If we collapse it, we bury this place forever." "You're saying we go down there?" Another piece of the steel door tore away violently. The yellow eye blinked again. Closer now. There's no other choice. Something huge shifted beneath the darkness. Then came a sound like bones snapping underwater. A long pale arm slowly emerged through the broken doorway. Not human. Not even close. Its skin looked stretched and translucent over massive bones. And its hand. It had far too many fingers. The shepherd suddenly screamed. The sound blasted through the cellar hard enough to make me stumble. Then it fled upstairs. The other creatures followed instantly. Every glowing eye vanished from the darkness above us within seconds. "They're abandoning the ranch," Everett whispered in disbelief. The arm beneath the cellar continued dragging itself slowly outward. Concrete cracked under its weight. I could finally see part of its face now. Not fully. Just enough. Gray flesh. A mouth lined with rows of uneven teeth moving beneath the skin like worms. And those yellow eyes. They looked almost intelligent. Like it understood us completely. The creature smiled. I swear to God it smiled. Then the ranch lights upstairs suddenly came back on all at once. Every lantern. Every bulb. The entire house lit up brightly above us. The creature beneath the cellar immediately stopped moving. The yellow eye narrowed. Everett looked confused. So, meeting triggered the system. Before he could finish speaking, a voice echoed from upstairs. "Human. Female. Dad." Everett froze. A woman slowly descended the cellar stairs carrying an old lantern. She looked to be in her early 30s. Dark hair. Pale skin. And exhausted eyes. The moment Everett saw her, he nearly collapsed. "No." The woman stared at him silently. "You left me down there?" she whispered. My stomach tightened instantly. Her voice matched the little girl from earlier, but now she looked human, almost normal. Everett's hands shook violently. Claire? The woman smiled sadly. I tried coming home. Something about her felt deeply wrong. Not her appearance. Her movements. Every step looked delayed somehow, like her body copied human behavior a fraction too late. She stopped near the bottom of the stairs. The yellow eye beneath the cellar watched her carefully, and for the first time, it closed, like it recognized her. Everett stepped forward slowly. You're alive. Claire's smile widened slightly. No, she answered softly. The lantern in her hand flickered. Then dozens of whispers filled the cellar again. Not threatening. Morning. Claire looked toward me next. You need to leave this place before sunrise, she said quietly. Everett stared at her in shock. You know what's down there? Her eyes slowly drifted toward the broken steel doorway. I've seen it feeding. Silence filled the cellar. Then she looked back at Everett. It's waking up because the shepherd failed. A horrible cracking noise suddenly echoed beneath us. The creature below forced another part of its body through the doorway. The floor tilted slightly under its weight. Claire's expression changed instantly. We're out of time. She turned toward a narrow tunnel behind the broken steel door. There's another way to the support chamber, she whispered. Follow me. Everett looked completely torn apart inside. Part of him wanted to trust her. Part of him was terrified. Then Claire looked directly at him one final time and said something that made his face go white. You buried Mom beside the windmill. Everett had never told me that, which meant somehow, she really was his daughter. End of Part 7. Part 8. Claire led us through the broken steel doorway and into the tunnels beneath Black Hollow Ranch. The deeper we went, the colder the air became. The walls around us looked unnatural. Smooth in some places, jagged in others, almost like something had clawed through solid rock from below. The only light came from Claire's lantern. Behind us, the thing beneath the cellar kept moving. Every few seconds, the tunnels trembled with its weight. Thump, thump. Dust drifted from the ceiling while distant whispers echoed through the caves around us. Everett walked beside his daughter in complete silence. I could tell he still didn't fully believe what he was seeing. Honestly, neither did I. Claire moved strangely through the tunnels. Not stiff anymore. Almost graceful. Like she knew every inch of the caves perfectly. How are you alive? I finally asked. She didn't look back. I'm not alive the way you understand it. That answer made my skin crawl. The tunnel eventually widened into a massive underground chamber. The sight stopped me cold. Bones. Thousands of them. Human skeletons stacked in towering piles around the cave walls. Old mining equipment rusted beside them, half buried beneath layers of dust and black stains. And in the center of the chamber stood something enormous. A pit. Perfectly circular. At least 50 feet wide. Cold air poured upward from inside it endlessly. I stepped closer carefully and looked down. Big mistake. The darkness inside the pit moved. Not shadows. Something alive shifting impossibly deep below us. Then two giant yellow eyes slowly opened in the abyss. Watching. Waiting. I stumbled backward instantly. Everett grabbed my shoulder. Don't stare too long, he warned. Claire pointed toward the far side of the chamber. There. An old support structure stretched across the cave wall. Thick wooden beams held up part of the tunnel system beneath the ranch. Everett handed me the dynamite quickly. If we destroy those beams, the entire chamber collapses. The ground shook again. Closer this time. Then came the sound of climbing. Something massive was pulling itself upward from the pit. Claire suddenly turned toward Everett. When this starts, she whispered, you cannot hesitate. Everett looked at her silently. Pain filled his face. I'm sorry, he said softly. Claire smiled sadly. You already said that 30 years ago. The whispers around the chamber suddenly became deafening. Not coming from the walls anymore. From below us. Hundreds of voices rising from the pit together. Stay. Don't leave. We are hungry. The yellow eyes beneath the darkness blinked once. Then the creature began emerging. First came the fingers. Enormous pale hands gripping the edges of the pit. Then the head slowly rose into view. I nearly lost my mind looking at it. Its body looked vaguely human only in the worst possible way. Like something ancient had tried copying human anatomy without understanding it completely. Its mouth stretched vertically across its face, lined with rows of moving teeth. Parts of its skin hung loose while other areas looked fused together with faces trapped beneath the flesh. Human faces. Moving weakly. Whispering. The creature's yellow eyes locked directly onto me. And suddenly, The whispers inside my head stopped completely. One single voice replaced them. Come. You came willingly. My knees nearly buckled. The creature wasn't speaking aloud. It was inside my mind. You carry guilt, it whispered. That makes you easy to open. Claire stepped between me and the creature instantly. For the first time, the monster hesitated. It actually hesitated. She belongs to us, the voice growled inside my skull. Claire's eyes darkened slightly. No, she answered calmly. Not anymore. The chamber exploded with noise. The creature screamed so violently the cave walls cracked around us. Everett lit the dynamite fuse instantly. Run. We sprinted across the chamber while rocks began crashing from above. Behind us, the creature pulled itself fully from the pit. It was enormous. Its back scraped the cave ceiling as it lunged toward us with horrifying speed. The support beams shattered beneath falling debris. One by one, the dynamite charges detonated. Boom, boom, boom. The entire cave system began collapsing. The creature roared in fury as massive chunks of rock crushed parts of its body. But it kept coming. Claire suddenly stopped running. Everett turned instantly. No. She looked at him one last time. And smiled. A real smile this time. Then she shoved both of us forward. The cave ceiling collapsed between us and her instantly. I heard Everett scream her name as we barely escaped into the outer tunnel. Behind us, the underground chamber imploded completely. The roar of the creature vanished beneath thousands of tons of falling rock. The shockwave blasted us through the tunnel entrance and out into the desert just as sunrise touched the horizon. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Dust clouds rose behind the ranch while the earth continued trembling softly beneath us. Silence. Real silence. No whispers. No lights. Nothing. Black Hollow Ranch slowly collapsed into itself as the underground tunnels gave way beneath the land. Everett stared at the destruction without speaking. He looked broken, but relieved. A few hours later, I left the ranch for good. Everett stayed behind. Said someone needed to make sure the land remained buried. I never saw him again. But 3 months later, I received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was the old photograph Everett showed me on my first night. The one with the 6 workers standing in front of the ranch. Only now, there were 7 people in the picture. Standing near the back, half hidden in shadow, was me. And written on the back in black ink were 6 words I still see in nightmares. The lights remember everyone who sees them. End of part 8. Thanks for watching tonight's story. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more creepy horror stories every week. And comment below, what would you have done at Black Hollow Ranch? Stay safe out there.